In this video, we're going to look at using set-driven key in order to create a bit of a control interface that will make it easier for us to animate the opening and closing of the claws in this model. So if you'd like to follow along, you can go to the claw rigged scene file, and that will get you here with your object all set up, with the hierarchy set up, and with your inverse kinematics and everything pretty much ready to go for the animating process. So let's go in here to the front view, and what we're going to do is create just some basic curves, some circle and a box, to create kind of a control interface with just like a slider for our actual control over the rotation of these claw pieces here, so that we don't have to go in and select them and then independently rotate them. All right, and we'll simplify the animation process. So I'm going to start just by getting a NURBS circle, and I'll just make a small little circle over here on the left, and then I'm going to make a square also. So let's drag this out, make it about the right size here, about like that, and then I'll just rotate it around 90 degrees so it's facing the right way. And then let's go back over here, and I'm gonna go grab that entire NURBS square here, and let's just move it over into place so it's just kind of centered up over that little circle there. So put it about right here. Now, one important thing is that we're going to want to reset or freeze our transform. So go up to Modify, Freeze Transformations, and then you should see all these things zero out. Rotation and translation should be 0, and scale should be 1 on all of those. So just double check and make sure that we got that on both the entire NURBS square and on the NURBS circle. Okay, so the NURBS circle is going to be what controls, by sliding it left to right, will control the animation of this joint and this joint. And we'll also constrain it so that it can't open any wider than it would possibly go, where we would get some interpenetration here. So, you know, if I open this up far enough here, the pads at the end of the claws are going to actually overlap, and see, we don't want it to go any farther than that. We kind of want to limit it to something like this. All right, so let's go ahead and close that up, and we'll start up the set-driven key. So to get to set-driven key, go to Animate, and then set-driven key, and then Set. So this will give you a control over a driver, which is what controls the animation. In this case, that's going to be this NURBS circle, so I can go ahead and click Load Driver. And I can rename the NURBS circle if I want, but it doesn't really matter. We're just going to use it as a visual here on the control anyway. And then on Driven, if you don't have anything loaded, I already had these selected when I opened up Set Driven Key, but if you don't have them selected, you can go in and select the two pieces that you want to control, so in this case those two joints, and then just choose Load Driven. So just like with Load Driver, you can load the driven there. And so now I have NURBS Circle 1 is going to control joints 4 and 7, okay? So what I want this to do though is I want my position on the X to control my rotation on the Z for each of these. So I'm going to highlight, translate X, and then for joints 4 and 7, I'm going to highlight rotate Z. And you can see once I select something on top and bottom, I get the option to key this. So I'm going to go ahead and key it, because when this is all the way to the left, I want this closed. Now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to move it over to the left about as far as it will go and stay nicely inside this little square. So maybe about right there. And now I want to open up these claws so that I can have a key for this being opened up. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to rotate these all the way until just before the pads meet the edges there. That's probably a little bit too far. So go to right there. You could do this one at a time, or you can do them both at the same time. Doesn't really matter. And then once I have those in the position that I want, I'm going to go ahead and click Key again. So now if I go over and select this, and we can close our set-driven key for now, I can take this, and if I slide it left to right, you can see that it closes. Now, one thing though you'll notice though is that the circle can go out of the box left and right, and actually can go out of the box up and down too, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is set some limiting information on that circle so that it won't move out of the box. So under NURBS Circle 1 in your attribute editor, go down to Limit Information and then Translate. This is where you can lock off an object so that it doesn't move beyond a pre-designed set of boundaries. So in this case, I don't want any movement on the Y or the Z. So here you have three sets of information. You have the minimum amount allowable, the maximum amount allowable, and then whatever the current is. Now right now, I want this to stay at the current Y and Z positions. So if I click these arrows to the left, it will reset my minimum values. You can see they're grayed out now. And that will also reset my maximum values. And those will stay grayed out until I click the checkbox. And once I click these, I can then go ahead and see that I have these all locked down. And now I can't actually drag this up and down. It stays stuck. Now, I also want to limit my X position, but I want to limit it to being as far right or maximum as it is right now. So 5.13, I'm going to go ahead and click the over arrow and then put that to maximum. And then I'm going to set this down to 0. And then I'll click the button to put that over to my minimum on the X. And then I'll click the limit on the X for the minimum. So now I can't move any farther than inside the box, and I can't move any farther than the open and close positions on my claw. So there you can see that set-driven key can very easily allow you to set up points so that one object can control multiple objects, and also seemingly unrelated values. In other words, the X position here is keying my rotation there. And since I already have constraints set up on the pads, this is actually controlling a fair amount of animation downstream of it. So using set-driven key will make it much easier to key and animate your models once you've got them finished, built, and set up ready to animate.